Welcome back to my channel, guys. This is Quiet Blink, scary stories that creep a little closer with every sound. I'm just starting this channel and I really need your support. Please subscribe, like, and share. Every click helps me keep these stories coming. Don't blink. Quiet Blink. 12 years ago, Alice Fletcher worked as a secretary at a large company and fell in love with a businessman. The love was mutual until another woman came between them. He chose her and got married, leaving Alice pregnant. For a long time, she couldn't find peace and couldn't believe it had all ended so simply. 38 weeks later, Alice gave birth to a girl and named her Jade. Even with the arrival of her daughter, the woman was unhappy. It was hard for her to raise her alone. When Alice looked at her daughter, she immediately remembered the man she loved. She had loved only him deeply and didn't want to continue life with anyone else. She was tired of the heavy burden, the worries, the fuss, and wanted to find a quiet haven far from the noisy city. On Jade's 5th birthday, Alice left her and became a nun. She asked the abbess to keep it secret from everyone, even from her own daughter. She said it would be better if she were considered dead by everyone. The abbess was a distant relative of Alice and before entering the monastery had been Jade's godmother. 2 years later, the abbess enrolled the girl in a boarding school. The treatment from other children like her was terrible, and so Jade often came to the monastery. All her childhood, she lacked a mother's love and attention. She didn't know what it felt like to be loved. April 25th, 2012. Jade had already finished school. She was sitting on the monastery windowsill looking out over the field. Her silky hair fluttered in the wind, and the sun's rays lit her pale skin. From time to time, sadness washed over her. Jade was tired of being alone and dreamed of finding at least someone from her family. Taking a deep breath, she picked up a book and began to read. It was her only comfort in a difficult moment. Thanks to books, she could distract herself from everything and forget why she felt sad. The abbess passing by noticed the girl's melancholy and knew why. Though she was strict with Jade, she loved her and wanted to help. Her first thought was of the Harris family, and she immediately called their home. She could have called earlier, but she was afraid Alice's secret might be revealed and Jade would learn something. 3 days later, Jade's cousin was able to come to the monastery. Kendall, a thin guy with dark chestnut hair and brown eyes with long black eyelashes. He wore a black turtleneck and gray jeans, and a gray blazer hung over his arm. Kendall was overjoyed when he heard the good news and had a lot on his mind. He knew that Alice had died in childbirth and thought the baby had died too. He, like Jade, had been told that lie. However, he convinced himself he had lost his sister. After the abbess finished speaking with him, she called for Jade. The girl heard the call, snapped her book shut, and walked out of the building. The nun introduced Jade to Kendall and left, giving them privacy. He looked at his sister and smiled gently. The girl, looking at how he appeared and how he carried himself, decided that compared to him, she was just a gray mouse. Jade thought only about how rich his parents were and imagined how arrogant they might be, as well as their son. She returned to reality when she realized that Kendall had hugged her tightly with the words, "You're so beautiful, sister." The abbess came back to them with Jade's things. Jade took the bag in her hands, cast one last look at the monastery and sighed. Kendall opened the car door, and when his sister finally sat down, he started the engine. The car moved off. After a few miles, the car stopped near a 2-story white house. Inside it was spacious. Her brother's voice pulled her away from examining the decor and interior. "The parents aren't here. They're constantly at work and very busy with their duties. I rarely see them, so I often stay alone in this big house. But now you'll live here and I won't be so lonely. And besides, I always wanted a little sister. And I always wanted a family, Jade forced out. Kendall smiled and patted her on the head. They spent the rest of the time together. At first, Jade was shy around her brother, but soon she got used to him, and Kendall loved her like a real sister. He constantly worried about her when she was late and didn't come home for a long time. From the outside, it might have seemed like nothing special, but it was something more. Summer passed and Jade entered college. There she made quite a few friends. There were also other students who had gone to school with her before. Everyone had grown up and become more reasonable. She often socialized and spent time with her new friends. Sometimes they went to a cafe or just walked around, but even so, Jade took a long time to watch them and figure out what they were like. On Friday after class, Jade lingered a bit in the library. When she looked at the time, she quickly gathered her things, left the building, and headed home. The buses had already stopped running, and she had to walk through the dark streets and neighborhoods of New Jersey. Jade approached the house, and the moment she opened the door, she immediately saw Kendall. He wasn't looking at her, but at the floor, leaning against the wall. Finally, her brother raised his eyes to his sister. "Where have you been? I was worried about you." "I stayed late at the library," Jade mumbled. "Sorry. Next time, warn me. We're at different schools, and I can't look after you. I don't want to lose you. There are too many jerks around here. By the way, Mom and Dad are coming tomorrow, and one more thing." "Wait." Kendall started looking for something in the closet and pulled out a box. "Here." Jade took it in her hands. It felt fairly light, and the girl asked, "What's inside?" "A present. Your birthday is soon. I know it's in 3 weeks, but I didn't want to wait." Kendall hugged her abruptly. "I'm so glad I have you. I love you." "I'm glad too, and I love you." "Thank you for the present," Jade said with a smile, hugging her brother back. Pulling away, she opened the box. Inside lay a black hoodie dress with a large hood, a green top with a high collar, and black trousers with a gray vertical stripe. She had never been given anything like that for her birthdays. In fact, she was never given anything. And Jade was happy about this seemingly insignificant gift. She couldn't even imagine such attention and teared up. Seeing the tears, Kendall gently wiped them from his sister's cheeks with his thumb, then asked, "Hey, what's wrong?" "It's all right," Jade replied quickly. "Promise me that I will never again see tears on your cheeks." He adjusted her hair and added, "I like it when you smile. Smile more often." Jade nodded and went to her room. Crossing the threshold, she felt dizzy, and her vision started to flicker. The girl grabbed her head and slowly sat down on the bed. "Not this again," she whispered. "When will this hellish pain stop?" By the next evening, her aunt and uncle were already home. They greeted Jade warmly and said they had taken a month's vacation. The girl was glad that her relatives weren't as she had imagined. Finally, life was settling down. A family had appeared, and Jade was happy. She couldn't dream of anything else. There were 3 weeks left until her birthday, and Jade waited for it impatiently. "This will be my first birthday that I celebrate with my family," she thought. Another school day began as usual and ended rather boringly. Coming home, Jade noticed that Kendall still hadn't returned. He always warned them right away if he was delayed or wouldn't be home before 10 in the evening. The girl felt terrible, as if something sharp had pierced her heart, and Jade clenched her shirt in her fist. "Aunt Ashley, hasn't Kendall come by?" she asked carefully. "No, dear. He's probably delayed. I think he'll call soon. Meanwhile, go to the kitchen and have some tea." Now Jade understood how her brother had worried about her. Now she was in his place and felt the same as he had. The landline rang and the girl heard, "I'll get it." Her aunt picked up the phone and gasped at the end of the conversation. Jade asked in a trembling voice, "What happened?" "Kendall is in the hospital. He was in an accident. Crashed into a Rolls-Royce." Ashley answered in fragments. Hearing the news, Jade immediately ran to him, and after a long, exhausting run, she finally arrived. A nurse helped her find her brother's room. She was almost Jade's height, with shoulder-length straight black hair and brown eyes. She said he was in a coma, and it was unknown when he would wake up. Jade approached Kendall. His head was bandaged up to his eyes, and there were burns and wounds all over his body. She gently placed her hand on Kendall's hand and squeezed it slightly. "How could this happen, Kendall?" Her voice trembled. 5 minutes later, the nurse came in. "I don't want to upset you, but visiting hours are over. Just a second." Jade couldn't let go of his hand, but still reluctantly did. She left the hospital, and a little later Aunt Ashley came. To her question, "How is he?" Jade briefly described Kendall's condition. They both sighed and went home. Every day after school, Jade went to see Kendall at the hospital. He still hadn't regained consciousness, but the girl's hope was alive. Each time she squeezed his hand and couldn't let go, thinking that if she did, she would lose her brother. Jade worried about him greatly. In the neighboring house lived a friendly woman, Clara Nelson, who loved tending flowers. The neighbor divorced her husband 6 years ago because he beat her and treated her very roughly. She was not only a neighbor, but also a close friend of Aunt Ashley. Jade got to know her better. At first, they just said hello, but now they had come to tea and conversations. Clara told many interesting stories that had happened here. Jade enjoyed listening to her. Clara knew psychology and talked a lot about it. A couple of days later, Jade heard her aunt crying in the living room and went downstairs. She saw Uncle David comforting her aunt. "What happened? Uncle, why is Aunt crying? Kendall, David didn't want to say it or even hear it again. Jade guessed that her brother had died, and without waiting for an answer, ran to her room, wiping away tears. She had promised Kendall that no matter how life turned out, she wouldn't cry. This time it was hard for her to hold back. Her uncle went up to Jade and entered the room. "Jade, how are you?" "Awful great birthday present," the girl answered sarcastically through tears. "I will never forget that lousy day and that damn Rolls-Royce." "Don't take it so hard." Her uncle hugged his niece. "I think it's better for you to stay home tomorrow." "Why?" "You've probably guessed where we're going. I don't want to traumatize you even more. You've already been through a lot. Go to sleep. Maybe it'll ease a little." Jade said nothing and went to sleep, hugging the toy Kendall had given her. Even with it, she couldn't calm down. The toy only made her cry more and think about her brother. There was no sleep. The next day, Jade got up with a headache, dimly recalling yesterday. After her brother's death, the girl grieved for a long time and was not herself. She behaved strangely, barely spoke to anyone, and ate poorly. Her birthday passed sadly. Half the day, Jade sat alone in her room, listening to the howl of the autumn wind and looking out the window at the clouds. Sometimes it seemed to her that someone was walking behind her or watching her, that someone was constantly nearby even if she was alone. This feeling didn't leave Jade. Once, a strange person appeared in front of her and mysteriously disappeared. She saw him for a moment and afterward tried to remember the face. The girl decided these were hallucinations due to the medications she was taking. She remembered how the doctor said that over time this side effect would pass. It didn't. Another school day flew by unnoticed. At college, when they learned of her brother's death, the students tried to comfort and cheer her up. Jade was already returning home. The door was open, which seemed strange. No lights were on. There was dead silence. The girl put her backpack on the hall table and shouted, "I'm home." No one answered. "Aunt, uncle, where are you?" Ashley and David had said that they would be home all day. The girl called her aunt's cell, but the phone rang in another room on the second floor, as did her uncle's phone. Jade had a bad feeling. She grabbed her head and slowly climbed the stairs to the second floor, holding on to the railing. The ringing was coming from Kendall's room. She hesitantly put her hand on the doorknob, went into the room, and felt for the switch. The light snapped on and lit the room. The girl screamed, staggered, and almost fell from shock. Opposite her lay the mutilated bodies of Aunt Ashley and Uncle David. Ashley's hands and eyes were missing. From her facial expression, it was clear how she had suffered. David's body had been opened, and some organs were nearly spilling out. His eyes were sewn into crosses, and the corners of his lips were pulled with thread, giving the man a wide smile. Blood had spread across almost the entire floor. The room smelled of entrails. Tears began to run down Jade's cheeks. She wanted it all to be just a bad dream. Her gaze moved to a person standing next to the bodies, clutching a bloody saw. He turned sharply. The guy was grinning widely, his black mouth showing separated fangs, and instead of eyes, black crosses. A hood from a black jacket was pulled over his head. All parts of his body were hidden by black clothing. "Are you happy to see me, sister?" he asked. Jade stood in a stupor and didn't understand why he was calling her sister. "Come on, give me a hug. Don't you recognize your brother?" He reached out his arms. When the guy spoke, his face remained just the same. Happy. Jade truly didn't recognize him and couldn't believe her eyes. Kendall wanted to come closer, but the girl moved away from him. The guy didn't like that. Kendall quickly started toward his sister and then pinned her to the wall. The girl, without looking away, stared at him. "Don't look at me, sister. If you don't want to die." Kendall covered her eyes with his hand. Jade touched his hand, holding back tears. "Why did you do that to them?" "For what?" "Oh, I didn't want to, believe me." "My mom noticed me and screamed. I told her I was me, but she kept screaming and crying. Dad ran to her scream with a rifle and shot me, but didn't manage to kill me. I got so angry that I couldn't hold myself back. I killed Dad painfully and slowly right before Mom's eyes. I also couldn't watch her suffer and cry, so I killed her quickly, but first I gouged out her eyes so she wouldn't be able to see it all. And me, will you kill me too?" Kendall removed his hand from her eyes, took the girl by the face and said, "Crosses, and a smile like mine, would suit you." He took out a needle already threaded and was about to bring it to Jade's face, but then stepped back. "No, I love you, little sister, and never forget that." Kendall vanished. Jade didn't notice Clara coming into the house. The girl didn't want to leave the bodies of her aunt and uncle, but still went downstairs. "Jade, I heard screams from the street and hurried here." "Where are Ashley and David?" the woman asked anxiously. Jade couldn't stand it and burst into tears again. "Baby, what's wrong? Why are you crying?" "They're dead." "What?" "No, that can't be. Show me them." Clara went upstairs with Jade, and when she saw their bodies, she froze, stifling a scream. The woman recovered a bit from the shock and began questioning Jade. "Did you see the killer? Do you remember what he looks like?" "He has crosses instead of eyes and a wide smile." The girl didn't dare say that the killer was her late brother. She noticed Kendall behind Clara flinched and moved away. "What scared you so much?" "He's behind you." "But I don't see anyone." Clara turned sharply. "Jade, you're just stressed, and everything seems to you." "No, it's not my imagination. He's really here." Jade kept moving farther and farther away until she bumped into a wall. She was staring, as it seemed to Clara, at one spot with eyes wide open, which alarmed the woman. "Sweetheart," Clara began, "I know a good psychiatrist at a clinic. He'll help you, and don't talk to me like I'm crazy. Don't you believe me? He'll help you get through the stress. Let's go there and everything will be fine later, and they'll lock up that killer soon." After these words, Kendall broke into hysterical laughter. Jade covered her ears with her hands, grabbed the first thing that came to hand, and threw it at her brother. "Stop laughing." "But I wasn't laughing," Clara screamed in fright. She couldn't stand it and took the girl by the hand. "That's it, let's go." Jade tried to persuade her, but the neighbor only replied, "They won't hurt you. It's a good clinic." While they were driving, Jade remembered that there was a small laboratory in this psychiatric hospital. At the moment, some scientists had stayed and were testing new medications on incurable people. But they had terrible or fatal side effects. In the car, Jade clutched her head with both hands, hearing Kendall's voice. "Ha ha ha. You've gone mad, little sister? Ha ha. You're slowly going insane. This woman thinks you're a psycho, and she probably thinks that it was you who killed the only relatives who loved you, so to speak. Ha ha ha." Jade's eyes began to fill with tears. The pain only intensified because of Kendall's continuous laughter. A ringing appeared in her ears, and the girl squeezed her eyes shut. They pulled up to a white building. Above the door hung a sign, "Psychiatric Clinic for the Mentally Ill." As soon as Jade crossed the threshold, she immediately smelled blood and heard someone's hysterical laughter. She swallowed the lump in her throat and walked forward. After a conversation, the nurse smiled and led the girl to a ward. Several days in the clinic didn't make Jade feel better. Because of the drug, she became more aggressive and sometimes either fainted or suffered even more from headaches. She was often starved and chained to the bed because of breakdowns. She often had nightmares about her aunt and uncle. Their mutilated bodies wouldn't leave her memory. Kendall often appeared in her nightmares. His presence didn't let the girl sleep, and the nurses gave Jade sleeping pills. When the opportunity presented itself, she walked along the corridors. Some windows had boards nailed over them or padlocks hanging from them. The gray walls set a creepy atmosphere. The girl wanted to get out of this horrible place as soon as possible. 2 weeks later, Jade learned that Clara wanted to take her home. But Dr. Den kept saying that the patient was still ill. The hope of rescue collapsed like a house of cards, and Jade realized that she wouldn't be leaving here anytime soon. One day, the scientists in the laboratory in the basement created a new drug and wanted to run a small test or experiment. Even though there were no longer incurable patients in the clinic, since half had died and the other half had become disabled, the doctors said that they would not allow any experiments on people who could be cured. The scientists gave up trying to persuade them and dispersed. But one of them, ignoring the entire conversation, went upstairs, filled empty syringes with that very drug, and replaced with them the syringes of ordinary medicine intended for patients. Toward evening the same day, the nurses were supposed to inject the patients with a new dose of medication. Jade was brought into the office first. She struggled and tried to run, but it was no use. "Don't resist. This is for your own good." The nurses somehow got Jade down on the couch. Dr. Den, who was treating the girl, was also present. Soon another nurse brought one of the syringes with the medicine. She put on a mask and gloves, took the syringe, tapped it a little, and in an instant the needle plunged into Jade's arm. "That's it," said the doctor. "Jade, how do you feel?" Jade didn't answer, but only looked at him with a piercing gaze. She slowly got up from the couch and began to walk carefully, pressing cotton to the spot where the injection had been. A minute later, the girl felt a jolt, and losing her balance, fell against a cabinet with medicines and other chemical reagents. It shook, and 2 flasks that stood at the very top toppled onto Jade. The acidic liquid from the first flask hit her cheeks and completely ate away the skin to such an extent that her teeth were visible. The same liquid from the second flask hit other parts of her body, her arms, collarbone, and stomach. Jade screamed from the pain and burning. Her cheeks took on a black color with a red tint, gradually bleeding. The drug that had been injected into her body was already actively working. A side effect turned her eyeballs dark, and the mint color of her eyes changed to a poisonous green. After a while, Jade lost consciousness. The girl ended up in a special ward where patients with physical injuries were treated. Her face was completely bandaged. It had been badly damaged. Jade heard the click of heels that stopped by her bed. It was one of the nurses. She removed the bandages from the girl's face and gasped, and shortly after the doctor came over as well. Jade quickly opened her eyes. The world suddenly lost all its colors and became completely monochrome for her. That unsettled her a little. She started darting her eyes back and forth and fixed her gaze on the nurse. Miss," the nurse began. "We were able to treat all the places on your body where the acid got, but scars remain, and there's one more thing. Your cheeks. We couldn't fix them." Jade got out of bed and went to the mirror above the sink. She screamed and carefully, with trembling fingers, touched her face. Is that really me?" Jade sank to her knees, covered her face with her hands, and began to sob loudly. "I hate you." After some time, having calmed down a bit, Jade decided to look at her face once more. She couldn't take her eyes off the mirror. Meanwhile, Dr. Den sent the nurse with a request to throw away the syringes with the drug and find who had switched them. "Jade, everything will be fine," the doctor finally said. She flinched when she heard his words and slowly turned to him. "Fine? Fine. You've turned me into a monster, and now you claim that everything will be fine? You should calm down. I think we can somehow settle this." He said it so cold-bloodedly, as if he didn't care what had happened or what was happening. "Settle it? Huh, how are you going to settle it? With your useless hypnosis? I hate you. I hate this damn place. I hate it. Let's go to my office and talk." Jade noticed a syringe with a sedative next to her, and an idea flashed in her mind. She took it in her hand and suddenly plunged the needle into the doctor's neck while he turned away. The man grabbed at the injection site, staggered, and fell to the floor. He was paralyzed. Jade took a knife from the instrument drawer and approached the doctor. The girl slit open his belly and began pulling out his organs. The doctor screamed, not from pain, but from what he was seeing. He couldn't tear his eyes from his own body. Jade didn't stop. With every minute, the girl was turning into a monster and gradually starting to laugh. She spared the doctor this sight by gouging out his eyes, but he still kept screaming. The girl reached the chest cavity. Her stomach hurt badly and growled. "You starved me. Why? I'm very, very hungry." Jade tore out his heart and shortly afterward ate it. She removed the bones from the body, stacking them in a small pile. A nurse ran in at the screams. She shrieked, and seeing the dead doctor, almost vomited. The woman managed to call the police, but paid for it. Jade ran up to her and stabbed a knife straight through her throat. She looked at her bloodied hands, then wiped her mouth and ran down the corridor. Other doctors tried to catch her, but the girl managed to duck into some girl's room. Jade braced the door with a chair, thus wedging it shut. The girl jumped off the bed and opened the window with a key, which had a padlock on it. "Run!" She handed over a bundle of curtains to climb down from the second floor. This girl herself wanted to run away from here? Jade grabbed the curtain and easily climbed down. She hid in a nearby alley. The sound of police sirens was audible from all around. Catching her breath, she continued walking, limping a little. It was raining. Jade stepped barefoot through the puddles and was soaked through. Soon she recognized one of the streets, and after a while reached the family's house. It was all sealed up. To her surprise, the door opened before the girl managed to touch it. Jade peered inside cautiously, but there was no one. She threw a glance toward the stairs, from which a strange sound was coming. The girl began to slowly climb the steps. A dim light could be seen in one of the rooms. Jade drew closer and closer to it. On the bed, the girl noticed the box of clothes her brother had given her, and she changed. She wrung out her hair with her hands, and the last water ran out of it. After that, Jade went to the closet and took a hacksaw. Sirens were again heard in the distance. She left the house through the back door, pulled a hood over her head, and tried to remain unnoticed. Jade made her way for a long time through bushes and thickets. Soon the girl noticed an abandoned house, and without much thought, hid in it. It looked fairly decent, with 2 floors, and resembled that abandoned house not far from the monastery where Jade secretly liked to spend time. I should have stayed at the monastery. Jade sighed, thinking. She remembered her aunt and uncle again, remembered the hard life, remembered Kendall, and decided that fate itself had arranged such a lot for her. A question arose. For what, and why did Jade in particular deserve this suffering? There was no answer to that.